Imagine waking up tomorrow, checking your bank account, and seeing 7 zeros. Not a typo. Not a glitch. Real. Confirmed. Yours. Now imagine it happened to everyone. Your neighbor. Your barista. The stranger 3 seats down on the morning train. Every adult on Earth, all at once, suddenly holding $1 million. For exactly 4 seconds, this sounds like the end of every financial worry you've ever had. Then a much stranger question creeps in. If everyone has $1 million, does anyone actually have anything? That question is where this story begins. And the strange part is, it's your story. Just close your eyes for a second and actually picture it, because the version of you in this dream is about to learn something most people never learn in an entire lifetime of earning and saving and hoping. You fall asleep on an ordinary Tuesday night, mid-argument with yourself about whether you can afford new tires. You wake up to a notification on your phone. Your balance reads $1 million. You blink. Check again. Same number. You laugh. The kind of laugh that comes right before panic, when your brain hasn't decided yet if this is a joke. You walk into your kitchen, and the first crack in the fantasy appears almost immediately. Your coffee maker is beeping a price update. The bag of coffee you've bought for years now costs 11 times what it did yesterday. You assume it's an error. You check the receipt from the store's app. It isn't an error. It's the new price. Because coffee didn't get more valuable overnight. Money did the opposite. Here's the idea sitting quietly underneath everything that's about to happen to you, and it applies just as much to the real world you're sitting in right now. Money isn't wealth. Money is a claim on wealth. It's a ticket, not the show. And when everyone is suddenly holding the same ticket in equally massive quantities, the ticket stops meaning anything at all. Think about it like a concert with exactly 1,000 seats. If 1,000 people show up with tickets, everyone gets a seat, and the ticket has done its job. But if 1 million people show up holding the exact same ticket, the ticket hasn't made more seats appear. It's only made the ticket worthless. You don't know this yet. You just know your coffee costs more, and you have more money than you've ever had, so you shrug and buy it anyway. That shrug, that's the first domino, because you aren't the only one shrugging. Everyone, everywhere, all holding identical fortunes, is having the exact same thought at the exact same moment. I can finally afford this. And when everyone can suddenly afford the same limited stack of goods, the same apartments, the same cars, the same grocery shelves, the same acres of buildable land, something has to give. Not the supply, the price. Your phone buzzes. A friend calling instead of texting, which already tells you something is wrong. Her voice is fast, half laughing, half panicked, the way people sound when reality is moving faster than their sentences can keep up with. She tells you she already tried to pay off her mortgage in full, wiring the entire balance the second she saw her account, certain she was about to lock in a win before anything could change. The bank rejected the payment, not because the money wasn't there. It was sitting right there in her account, more zeros than she'd ever seen in her life. But because the system flagged it as suspicious, an automated fraud check never built to imagine a normal person suddenly wiring a fortune before breakfast. By the time she got a human on the phone to approve it, 40 minutes later, her lender had already repriced the payoff amount to reflect what $1 was now actually worth in the wider economy. She missed her own window by less than an hour. You hang up and sit with that for a second longer than you mean to. It isn't just that prices are moving. It's that they're moving faster than the ordinary machinery of daily life was ever built to handle. Banks, contracts, price tags, all of it designed around the assumption that $1 today would still roughly resemble $1 tomorrow. Take that assumption away, and every system built on top of it starts to wobble at once. By mid-morning, you decide to see how far the money actually stretches. There's a car you've wanted for years, a modest-use sedan, nothing fancy, sitting on a dealership lot across town. You drive over half expecting to just write a check and drive it home. The salesman meets you in the lot with an apologetic look already on his face, like he's rehearsed this exact conversation 11 times already today. The price on the windshield isn't the price anymore. He explains, almost embarrassed, that they've repriced twice since opening, because every car on the lot has 3 buyers standing in front of it at once, and the ones who show up an hour from now will be offering more than you're offering right this second. You watch the number climb while you're standing there. Not tomorrow. Not next week. While you're standing in the lot, keys practically in your hand. That's when the feeling starts to shift from excitement into something closer to dread. By noon, your drive across town feels different, though nothing about the roads has changed. Everyone on them seems to be heading somewhere new. Car dealerships, real estate offices, jewelry counters. A line has formed outside a boutique that sold, at most, 3 watches a week before yesterday. You duck into a coffee shop for a second cup, mostly out of curiosity now. The chalkboard price has been erased and rewritten twice already this morning. The barista, exhausted, tells you they've raised prices 3 times before 10 a.m., not out of greed, but because they simply ran out of beans twice, restocked at a steeper price from their supplier, and had to pass it along or lose money on every cup she pours. This is the part most people miss when they imagine sudden wealth for everyone. The story isn't about generosity or greed. It's about scarcity meeting infinite demand. There is a fixed number of oceanfront homes on Earth, a fixed number of vintage guitars, first edition books, downtown penthouses, plots of buildable land in any city anyone actually wants to live in. When the money chasing those fixed things multiplies overnight, the things don't multiply with it. Only the price does. On your way out of the coffee shop, you notice something that will stick with you longer than any of the price tags. A small crowd has formed outside the grocery store across the street, not because anything is on sale, but because a rumor has started spreading that certain goods are about to become impossible to find. Rice, canned vegetables, bottled water. None of it has actually run out yet. But the fear that it might is enough to send people sprinting down the aisles, carts overflowing, credit cards out before they've even checked a price. You stand on the sidewalk and watch a man walk out with a cart stacked so high he can barely see over it, and you understand something in that moment that no lecture could have taught you as clearly. When people stop trusting a currency, they don't just spend it faster. They rush to trade it for anything that still holds its value the next morning. Food, fuel, tools, things you can actually use, touch, hold, regardless of what any number says. The cash in every one of those carts is being converted, right in front of you, into something the owner believes will still matter tomorrow. It's the same instinct, just compressed into a single afternoon, that drove people a century ago to spend their wages the moment they were paid, before the value could evaporate by dinner. Nobody in that grocery store would call themselves a student of economic history. But their bodies already understand the lesson their minds haven't caught up to yet. A number is only as trustworthy as everyone's shared belief in it. And belief, once it starts to crack, spreads faster than any headline can explain it. By afternoon, you drive past a house you used to dream about. A modest 3-bedroom, nothing extravagant, the kind of home that used to sell for around $400,000. There's a new sign in the yard, $4,200,000. You sit in your car and stare at the number for a long moment, doing quiet math in your head. Your $1 million, which felt infinite 18 hours ago, wouldn't even cover a down payment on the same 3-bedroom house you used to be able to almost afford. This is where the central question sharpens into focus, and it's worth sitting with, because it applies just as much to your actual life as it does to this dream. Is wealth a number, or is wealth a relationship between a number and everything around it? Most people spend their entire financial lives chasing the first definition. Save more, earn more, watch the account balance climb, and the number does matter. Nobody is pretending it doesn't. But the number only means something in context. $1 million in a world where $1 million is common is not the same $1 million in a world where it's rare. You open your banking app one more time, sitting there in the driveway. The number hasn't changed. $1 million, exactly where it was that morning. But everything the number could buy has quietly shifted beneath your feet, like the ground rearranging itself while you weren't looking. You feel, for the first time in your life, genuinely rich and genuinely powerless in the exact same moment. That contradiction is the whole lesson, if you can sit with it long enough to see it. This isn't hypothetical panic. It's happened before. In the early 1920s, one country's currency collapsed so completely that people pushed wheelbarrows of cash just to buy a loaf of bread, paid twice a day because prices climbed between shifts. Decades later, a nation in southern Africa lived the same nightmare and fast forward, prices doubling within a single day, cashiers recalculating at the register because the price tags couldn't keep up. Different centuries, different continents, same math. More money existed. The bread did not multiply with it, and the money lost its meaning 1 zero at a time. Picture a single loaf of bread sitting still while a tower of cash grows taller beside it, higher and higher, until the tower dwarfs the thing it was supposed to buy. The bread was never the problem. The tower was. Back in your world, that math has a face. You see them outside the pharmacy on the corner. An elderly couple, standing very still while everyone else rushes past them. The husband is holding a small paper bag of prescriptions in one hand and a receipt in the other, reading it over and over like the total might change if he looks at it long enough. His wife isn't looking at the receipt. She's looking at him. They tell you, when you ask if they're all right, that they did everything right. 40 years of careful saving. No debt. A retirement account they never touched, built slowly, on purpose, exactly the way every financial advisor ever told them to build it. This morning, it made them millionaires on paper. This afternoon, the same account can't reliably cover a month of medication and groceries because the prices on both climbed faster than the balance ever could. The husband isn't angry. That's the part that stays with you. He's just quiet, doing the math again, the way you do math you already know the answer to, but can't quite accept yet. 40 years of discipline, and the ground moved anyway. You don't have anything to say to that. Neither do they. You just stand there together for a moment on the sidewalk, three people doing very different math that somehow arrives at the same uncomfortable place. Not everyone is struggling equally, though. Your neighbor, an older man who has spent 30 years slowly acquiring small rental properties across town, isn't panicking at all. If anything, he seems oddly calm, almost amused by the chaos on the news. You corner him on the sidewalk that evening, unable to hold back the question. Aren't you worried? Everything costs 10 times what it did yesterday. He shrugs, the same way you shrugged at the coffee maker that morning, except his shrug carries no anxiety in it at all. My rent checks just went up 10 times too, he says. I don't need my cash to be worth more. I need what I already own to be worth more. And it just got a lot more valuable. That single sentence lands like a struck bell, quiet but impossible to ignore. He isn't holding cash, he's holding assets. Actual buildings, actual land, actual claims on something the world still needs regardless of what the currency is doing. And assets, unlike cash sitting idle in an account, tend to rise right alongside the very inflation that's destroying everyone else's savings. You keep walking, and a few blocks later you run into someone else from your street. Younger, maybe close to your own age, someone you'd exchanged maybe a dozen words with before today. She tells you she spent her entire $1 million before lunch. Not on a car, not on jewelry, but on equipment. A food truck, a walk-in cooler, a used delivery van, all purchased at yesterday's prices, hours before the repricing even began. By the time the market caught up to what was happening, she already owned something the new, inflated dollars couldn't touch. A business that would keep making money in whatever the world's currency looked like next month, next year, next decade. She isn't holding a number either. She's holding a machine that produces numbers. You start to understand, standing there on the sidewalk between these two very different neighbors, that the people who feel steady today aren't the ones who happen to keep the most cash. They're the ones who moved fastest from a number into something real. This is the hidden principle the whole story has been quietly building toward, wrapped inside a single overnight economic collapse. Cash is a snapshot. Ownership is a photograph that keeps developing. When you hold cash, you're betting that the number on the screen will still mean something tomorrow. When you hold an asset, a business, a piece of property, a skill nobody else has, a system that generates value on its own, you're betting on something the world will still need regardless of what any currency happens to be doing that week. You think about your $1 million, still sitting untouched in your account, and for the first time, it doesn't feel like security. It feels like a countdown clock you didn't know was running. You think, too, about the work you do, the job you'd been quietly dreading returning to, the one that suddenly, in a world where $1 million buys almost nothing, feels more essential than it ever did before. Because the skill you've spent years building doesn't inflate away. It doesn't lose value overnight. It's not a number sitting in an account waiting to be devalued by everyone else's identical fortune. It's something the world will still need on the other side of this chaos, whatever the currency ends up looking like. This is where the story gently, respectfully, challenges a belief you've probably carried without ever fully examining it. The belief that a large enough number in a bank account is the finish line. That if you could just get the balance high enough, the anxiety would stop, the uncertainty would end, the story would resolve. But money was never the finish line. Money was always just a scoreboard for a game whose actual rules are about ownership, production, and usefulness. A pile of cash is a claim on the game. Owning something real, a skill, a system, a piece of property, a business that solves a problem, is a seat at the table where the game is actually played. You don't fully understand this yet, not with your mind. But something in your chest has already shifted. The way understanding sometimes arrives in the body before it arrives in words. You walk the rest of the way home slower than you meant to, turning the whole day over in your head like a coin you can't stop flipping. You think about the version of yourself from 24 hours ago, the one arguing about tires, who would have given almost anything to wake up with $1 million. That version of you wasn't wrong to want security. Everyone wants security. But you can see now, standing in the wreckage of a single inflated day, that the security was never supposed to live inside the number itself. It was supposed to live inside whatever the number could be turned into before the ground shifted again. You passed the boutique from that morning, the one with the line of buyers stretching down the block. The line is gone now. The watches are gone too. Every last one, sold within hours to people who understood, faster than you did, that a fixed object was worth more than an infinite number chasing it. You wonder how many of those buyers understood the lesson consciously, and how many simply felt it in their gut the same way the crowd at the grocery store did. An instinct passed down through every currency collapse in human history, even to people who've never read a page about economics in their lives. By the time you reach your own front door, the panic of the morning has settled into something quieter. Not defeat, exactly. Closer to clarity. The kind of clarity that only shows up after a day has taken something from you that you didn't know you were holding on to so tightly. That night, you wake up in your own bed. Your actual bed. The tires on your car are still bald. Your bank account holds its familiar, modest, entirely ordinary number. For one disoriented moment, you almost feel disappointed. Then, slowly, you feel something closer to relief. Not because you aren't a millionaire, because you are not that elderly couple outside the pharmacy, 40 years of discipline erased in a single afternoon by a fortune that arrived for everyone at once and meant nothing the moment it did. Your million never came. And for the first time, you're grateful for that, because it means the ground under you never had a reason to move. You get up, make coffee. The same coffee, the same price it's always been. And something about that ordinary, unremarkable fact feels like the safest thing you've ever tasted. Because here's the truth, the dream was trying to hand you the entire time. A fortune that lands on everyone at once isn't a gift. It's a reset button pressed on every price in the world, and resets don't care how carefully you saved, or how long you waited, or how much you deserve to finally get ahead. Your future was never supposed to arrive overnight, all at once, identical to everyone else's. It was supposed to be something slower than that, something yours, built one decision at a time, out of things no reset can touch. What you know, what you own, what you can do that the world still needs. The number was never the wealth. It was only ever the echo of it. What you build in the quiet, one ordinary day after another. That's the part nobody can hand you, and the part nobody can take away either.